Hey guys, it's Miss Simpson, and it is time for social studies today. And I'm so excited to teach you about the oil and the railroad. So let's go ahead and let's start talking about the Texas oil and railroads. All right, so let's talk about after the Civil War. So remember, the Civil War was when the North and the South, we kind of split. So we had the Union and we had the Confederacy. And that was because mainly there were a lot of issues, but the main one was slavery. The North did not want slavery, the South did want slavery, and so they split because they couldn't come up and come to the same terms. So then when everything was good and fine and they got back together and they did not split again, and that was the end of the Civil War, and the North ended up winning. They did have to abolish slavery. So after the Civil War, Texans worked hard to make Texas great again. We had lost a lot in the Civil War. So we built farms, we built ranches, we built businesses, we built all kinds of things to try and get our economy back to where it was before the war. So cattle was a huge business, and cattle drives were kind of our way of life. Like we talked about both on Monday and Tuesday, everybody was finding open prairies, open land, all of these cows just kind of roaming around, and they were making use of that, and they were making businesses out of that. But guess what? All of that was about to completely change with the introduction of railroads. Railroads come to Texas. So raise your hand if you've ever seen a railroad or a train of some sort. I have. I've actually ridden on a train. Now, this was like not necessarily one that they used back then, but it was like a train where we got to go through the mountains on this little train on a track. So kind of similar, right? So Texas, we had a few railroads, but we had to have some more to cover our super large state. Texas is one of the largest states in the United States, so we need a lot of railroads to cover all this area. Excuse me. The government traded land for companies to build these railroads, and then the companies would then sell the land for a profit. So by 1900, Texas had gone from 500 miles of railroads to more than 10,000 miles of railroad tracks. That is a lot of miles. The trains used were steam engines run by burning wood or coal, and we use this to transport a lot of things. So let's talk about the immigrants that came because of this. Because of inexpensive land and a lot of the jobs that Texas was made available, Texas was a really appealing place for immigrants, and they were important in building our railroads. They were a big part in building these railroads for us. They were like, hey, the land's cheap. Y'all have got plenty of jobs for us. This is a great place to go live. So with the easier, faster ways of getting across Texas, it's so big, this is so much faster, cities began to grow along the railroads. So they would grow right close to the railroads. Major cities' populations rapidly increased because of all of these railroads that we have. It was easier, faster, and more efficient to get around using the railroad. The railroad also made it super easy to travel, stay in touch with their family, and move goods. So not only are people traveling on the railroads, they're also staying in touch with their family. They're moving goods. It's providing jobs. It's creating booming populations of cities. And it was just overall really good thing that Texas, that we did for Texas, and that Texas went through after the Civil War. So we went from cattle drives and having a big cattle industry to railroads. Now, the cattle industry just didn't dissipate. That means to go away, to die out. It didn't just go away. There were still people doing that. It just wasn't as prevalent as the railroads, and it wasn't as booming as the railroads were. And railroads were easy. They were super easy, and everybody loved them because it made their life easier. Now, I want you to think about if you could have your own private train, what would you have on it? So if you could have your own train in Texas, think back then If you could have your own train with anything that you wanted on it, what would you have on your train? Now, I want this to be as crazy as possible. I want to know exactly what you desire to have on your train. So, you are going to do a flip grid. Right down below, I'm going to put a flip grid. Now, some of you, your teachers don't do flip grid, so you're going to do a journal entry. So my people who are doing journal entries, you're going to write about half of a page, maybe 5 or 6 sentences telling me if you had a private train, what would you have on your private train? And then my people that are in my homeroom, you're going to do a flip grid. And you guys know flip grids. You just record yourself and you're going to tell me all about your train. You have about a minute and a half to tell me what would be on your train, if anything. All right, so when you're done with that, submit your flip grid, submit your journal entry, and you are done for today. Tomorrow, I'm going to talk more about the railroads of Texas. I've got a few more slides to go over, and on Friday, we're going to talk about Native Americans. Again, we went over that at the beginning of the year, but I'm going to add in Buffalo. All right, I love y'all so much. Have a great day.